Good evening, folks. Before we get started with today's show, we want to thank last week's guest, Dave Rowan, for being on our show, where he was able to share his love and passion for the Ottawa Senators and his Ottawa Senators cards, and to help us learn more about the ever-growing popularity of soccer cards. I'm truly excited for our guest tonight. The onset of Top Project 2020 drove me to start working on my art again. I love the flow of ink on paper, and it's amazing what you can do if you actually believe in yourself. As Steady Freddie Van Vliet of the Raptors always used to say, and still says, always bet on yourself. Our next guest has definitely done that. He left a full-time job to work on his art, and he hasn't looked back since. You ever wondered what to do with all these base cards? I know I do. I open up box after box, and they sit in a pile. I sometimes give them to my kids, or sometimes I give them out to local kids at local card shows. At worst, some of you throw them out. We live in a very wasteful hobby, if you think about it, with all the box cracks and throwing out the packages and ripping open the cases. It's a lot of waste. And it's really neat to see our guest, Tim, who you'll introduce you to soon. He makes wonderful works of art out of these base cards and sports and pop culture. His art can be seen in museums and around the world and in the U.S., especially at the Baseball Hall of Fame. Not Hockey Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame. Everyone, let's welcome my guest, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, guys. Good talking to you.
Same. Thank you for being on our show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Tim Carroll, it's a pleasure to have you on our show this evening. I have a couple of questions for you to start off. So what made you decide to use singles and common base cards for your art? And to segue into that, do you have a massive supply of those singles and commons stored at your house?
I do now. I slowly but surely I've gotten almost it's close to 500,000 cards.
No kidding.
Yeah, just then those are 500,000 cards devoted strictly to artwork. That's not counting anything that's decent. As far as how I got into deciding to use baseball cards as a medium, it started back in 2009. It was there was an exact day, an exact moment in which it kind of came to me. I was not really doing much artwork. It was a little bit of drawing, some acrylic painting, but I was finishing a degree, elementary education degree at Ole Miss, and my wife was teaching, or she was a teacher, and she was finishing up a doctorate. And one of her projects that she had going, she was presenting at the NSTA Science Conference down in New Orleans. And so while we were down there, and we had a day off from the conference, and we're walking around the French Quarter and seeing all the different kinds of art that they had, in different types of galleries. And it was some really strange but very cool stuff, within those galleries. And then the rains came, and we ran inside of a 7-Eleven, and we're flipping through some magazines to take back to the hotel room with us. And one of them had something, just a little blurb about it, the 1909 T206 Honus Wagner, and how it was the 100th anniversary of that Wagner. So I got to thinking, what we had just seen, all the different kinds of artwork, body paintings and different things like that. And I started thinking, why is there not any type of really cool art when it comes to the Wagner?
Sure.
And I thought, hey, what if I took all the cards out of my closet? And I looked over at my wife and said, wouldn't it be cool if I took all those cards out of my closet and, traded them for that Wagner? And she was like, go for it. And I said, well, it doesn't work that way. You don't know what that card is worth. Those 1988 Topps cards aren't going to get a Wagner no matter how many you have. But got back home and started laying the cards out, and the wheels were turning. I had no intention of cutting them at first. I just wanted to overlap them and see if the colors, if I could get them to line up. I'd never even thought about cutting them. But then I realized if I don't cut the white borders off of the tops or some of the gray off of the fleer, then it wasn't going to work. So once I made the first cut, It was like, well, once you make the first cut, you might as well cut it to little pieces. And that's where it started.
That's awesome. And just for the crowd that's watching, I'm actually doing my version of a slow roll of Tim's website, timcarrollart.com. So you can see just how detailed the artwork is. And especially if you look at some of the more vintage pieces, I'm impartial to Jackie. So Jackie, you can see the details in the face. It's just wonderful to see this kind of work done, especially with, honestly, Tim, we throw these out most of the time. Some people recycle them. I give them to kids, but you're putting it to good use. And I'm really happy to see that.
So much better than if they're going to just sit in little white boxes in the closet. It's nice to have them out and, hanging on the wall. Obviously you got to make sure that you're cutting something that's not valuable and has no potential to be valuable. And the things from the late 80s and early 90s, no matter what kind of card boom we're going through right now, there's no one going to go back and try to place, hefty price tags on Jesse Orozco cards, from the late 80s. So
no offense to Jesse Orozco.
No, hey. Absolutely
no,
not.
No.
He was great. I'm left-handed, so I appreciated him, but no.
So Tim, when it comes to your art and artwork in general, was it always been something that comes naturally for you?
Yes, but I didn't really realize that, kind of along the way, really what I was even doing. I grew up in a small town in North Mississippi, and the school district that I was a part of, our school teachers were awesome. They worked with us. We only had like 2 classes per grade. That's how small we were. And each class had 13 to 15 students in it. But we didn't have the funds in the district for art classes, not even music, really. I think we had music one time when I was in 2nd grade for about half of a year, and then it was gone. So we really didn't have the arts in school all the way up until my senior year. But like I said, my school teachers were awesome. They always encouraged us to be creative. I would go out on the playground and use pine cones and sticks and straw and whatever I could use, on the playground to make pictures on the ground. But we didn't have the paints, the paintbrushes, and that kind of stuff. So when I got to be a senior in high school, we had a local gentleman at the local community college come down, and he offered, he needed 12 spots to fill a class, and he was volunteering his time to actually teach us and give us a little bit of training and his goal was to try to find talent for the local junior college art program. And it served a dual purpose, for him and for us. So I think there was like 80, 90 different portfolios submitted, and he selected 12 of us, and I ended up getting a scholarship to, go to Itawamba Community College from there. I went for 1 semester, and then life kind of got in the way, and I needed to work and help the family out. So that's what happened. I left it and ended up coming back to school about a decade later. Not for art, for education though at that time.
Right.
But so art has always been. I love to draw, so art's always been kind of there, but not. It wasn't anything that I kind of took seriously.
Right. So going from that and then to cutting up baseball cards, what was the first art piece that you actually created? Was it even with baseball cards as a medium or something else?
I mean, if you count, like, I worked drawings and some acrylic paintings of some Mississippi blues musicians. I love the Mississippi Delta, B.B. King, Robert Johnson, Son House, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, those kind of, all the blues legends. I love that stuff. And so, I had some acrylic paintings of that right before I started doing the baseball card art. But that's it. Yeah, the Honus Wagner was definitely the first one, but it was more of a conceptual piece at first, because I'll go back and I look at the original first one that I did, and it's ugly, it's it really is crude, but I love it, and I love it because it represents exactly what, at the time where I was at, and it shows me how much growth I've done over the last 12 years. So, it's wonderful from that, but I still consider that piece a conceptual piece, and pretty much like the first two or three, because even though they were taking 38 to 45 hours a piece to get them done, they're really crude. And the subjects that I chose, which was the Wagner, the 52 tops mantle, and the 89 upper deck Griffey, they definitely needed to be reworked down the road. And I have reworked those pieces and actually put out what I call my art pieces of those conceptual pieces.
Excellent.
So, as a kid, were you really big into collecting cards, and do you collect today?
Yeah, absolutely. I started collecting in about, I would say, 87, picking up the wood bordered tops cards. I didn't know what I was doing. We didn't, have a lot of extra funds in the house for things like that, but stop at the store, 25, 35 cents for a pack of cards, and come back and looking through them, had no idea what I was even looking for. I started playing baseball, and so it kind of kept me on path with that. And like everyone else, as time went on, I got more and more into it. But when college came around, everything went to the wayside. Met my wife, so I was not interested in cards for a few years, and then once we settled down and everything got put in place at the house, it was time to find something as a hobby again, and it's always there waiting on you. So I picked it right back up, and today I collect with my boys. We get different kinds of things. My two niche collections, I guess you could call them, I really love college baseball, college basketball, and college football autographs.
Yeah.
So certified autographs of players like Mark McGwire in his USC uniform, or Roger Clemens in his Texas uniform. Yeah, that intrigues me. I like that. So I have a nice collection of that. And my biggest one is the Allen and Ginter framed mini autographs. Yeah, so I'm about 27 non-baseball autographs away from having the complete run from 2006 to present. And there's about 547 of them in the complete non-baseball run. So I'm getting close. I'm looking for those last 27.
Tim, do you have the Anthony Bourdain one?
I do have the Anthony Bourdain.
Awesome.
That's one of my more recent pickups. I picked that one up about a month and a half ago. Yeah,
nice.
That one was that one hurt the wallet a little bit, but
yeah, he's up there.
but it's definitely one you have to have if you're going to complete it. So I was lucky to get that one.
Was Allen and Ginter the one with the Invisible Man? Was that the first one they did that?
I think they did that in 2009 or 2011. Those two framed borders are very similar. I believe the Invisible Man was in 2009 or 11. Yeah, and there was like 10 of those made, something like that.
That'd be an interesting thing to use for art. If you use the AG cards for your art?
I use some of the base cards. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I've used them on the Babe Ruth M1015 Sporting News rookie card. I think I used them on the 48 leaf Jackie. There's a couple other pieces I've used them for, but yeah, they come in handy.
And actually, when you look at certain base cards, I know you Kent mentioned you're looking for base cards, and you have X million cards in your house. How do you? And I didn't ask you this yesterday, and I was to think about it. How do you categorize them? Do you go by color or shape or just by set?
Right now, it's complete organized chaos. I mean, they are everywhere, and some of the boxes, that have been given to me or donated to me or that I bought in collections. They are, I can tell by what the box looks like. I know what's in it. When the boxes look, what I'm talking about too. Some boxes are torn and tattered. Some of them are, and so I kind of know what's in there. But yeah, I have them sorted for the most part by set, not by year, but by set. So if it's a lot of Fleer, I have them, all together. I try to keep them all together. Like I said, right now it is chaos. I haven't been back through. I need to take a couple of days and go back and put some things back together so that it'll be a little bit easier to find. It'll save me a few minutes.
Sure. So another question I have for you is, now junk wax era is obviously the boom, right?
Mhm.
So all those junk wax era base cards, and now they're worth so much money. So I'm curious, have you ever, have you cut up any of those valuable cards into your art by any chance? And you're like, you know what, there's a Griffey in there, and there's a.
I try not to. I try not to cut any Hall of Famers. That was the one thing that when I started doing this, and once I started making those cuts, like I was mentioning, Jesse Orozco, you're going to be hard pressed to find anyone that collects a majority of the players from those 80s and early 90s sets. I mean, for the most part, people don't even remember them. It's hard. It's unless you were a real big fan of that specific team. A lot of guys were 2 or 3 years in the league and done. So there's so many of those type of guys that it was unnecessary really to cut Hall of Famers or regional stars, players that may not be Hall of Famers but still have a pretty good collector base, like Will Clark or Bo Jackson.
Sure.
I mean, those guys. There's always a place out there for those cards, no matter how many there are. So I try not to cut those. And I try just to stick to just commons, but every now and then I'll come across a card of, a Darryl Strawberry or a Dwight Gooden, or even a, Kirby Puckett Hall of Famers that may be damaged with a crease in it. It's not going to do anybody any good. There are millions of them out there that are clean. So, I'll go ahead and cut those up. And I try to make sure to keep the faces intact. So, it, adds a little something to that piece.
I like to. I want to know how many Kevin Maas and Ben McDonald cards are in there, because those are worth a lot of money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Phil Plantiers and Ricky Jordans, Sam Horns.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to the prospecting days.
For sure.
Do you ever look at cards and then like you're going through them, and you ever get to a? Do you still, when you open the cards and you go through the comments, still get that joy of looking at them, or have you
Absolutely.
kind of done that? Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I look at I look at cards in a different way than most people do. I can open up a pack of 2021 tops, and I see that the field that's in the background, the dirt on the base pass has been sprayed down recently with water, and so it creates a darker dirt. And I'm thinking, I know where I can use that, this section of that card, So I see commons in a different way. It's pretty fun. I see blocks of color instead of seeing, just the card as a whole. But as far as the stuff from my childhood, absolutely, I go and I look and I see different things. I remember there's this one story my brother and I always laugh about when we were little and we were collecting. It was probably 88 or 89. And we noticed that John Shelby now. Okay. In 1987, he was, and I can't remember if he was with the Orioles first or the Dodgers, but in 87, he was with one of those teams. And then in 88, he was with a different team. And so we were really young and no one, was in our house collected cards. So there was no one to really teach us that really didn't matter. So we were thinking that one of them has to be expensive because he's not with this team anymore. And it's pretty funny. Every now and then I'll run across that and I'll send him a picture of it and say, "Hey, check out what I just found. You want it?"
Awesome. So can you share with us, some of your thinking process of like how you create your art, like from start to finish? I think the crowd would love to hear that, and those who watch it after will kind of just understand your process from an artist's perspective.
Sure. Yeah. So it's very straightforward. It really is. It is the drawing, the outline. I'm a former math teacher. I'm pretty good with numbers. So scaling everything up and doing the math and figuring out how big I need to make a piece to blow up the piece and keep everything proportional. And then I use the grid approach where you just, create the little squares off, and, whether it's 4-inch, 8-inch squares, and then actually grid off, a printout of that. And then whatever you see in one square goes in grid, 1A, 2A, 3A, and so on and so forth. And after you get that part down, then you go back and you fine tune that and get it as close to it as you can. And then it's pretty much cut and glue. And I've, worked a lot of live events like the National and the Expos in Toronto, the NHL Fanfare. And it's pretty fun working that stuff in person and seeing some people that have, seen my stuff online, and they're like, you're really just cutting and gluing. I'm like, yeah, I'm really, it's seriously just cutting and gluing and cutting and gluing. So there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of time in it where, you have to go back and scrape it off and cuss under the breath a little bit, and then, start over again from what the part. So there's a lot of trial and error in it, and there's a lot of learning along the way.
So we have a question from the crowd. First of all, I'll say hi to a few folks. So thank you,
Sure.
Brian, for coming by. Webo to you, 90s hockey collector. And we have a question from Vincent McGrath. So how many projects do you work on at once?
Oh, my goodness. So as many as 20 or 25 pieces I have going at various stages. And I have to do that from the standpoint of you don't really want to look at the same piece for too long, because you kind of get tunnel vision and it feels like you're having to get done with that one specific piece. So things, if you'll put it to the side, work on something different, and then revisit that piece in a day or two, you'll always see things that need to be touched up, fixed, tightened up. It could be a line that just doesn't belong, push it in a little bit. So I have a lot of pieces going, most of which are commissioned, but a lot of them are just other pieces that kind of just fill the time and kind of clear the mind a little bit. And that allows me just to fill in some bigger spots on other pieces and then get back to those commissioned pieces they're on the line. And Vinny, by the way, who just asked that question, he hooked me up with one of the prizes of my Ginner collection that Joe Frazier from 07. That's
nice.
The toughest.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, I really, thank him for that.
Cool. So just asking, it's a bit of a deviation from what we talked about yesterday, but I just thought of it now, which was so when I'm doing my art, I found an interesting thing that happened. So I was you look at your art, it's dead on, right? Like I'm reading a book. And then I found that by accident, by pivoting the art into a different angle, I saw things differently. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. And then I found that if I looked at things in a different angle, you just get this rush. You're like, whoa, I never saw that. Like, oh, right. I really like that. Let me try that. Have you ever had that happen to you?
I do a lot of my work upside down. So if you may see pictures online if people post them from me working at a national or at an expo. I'm actually working it upside down for that very reason. Instead of seeing, looking at it as a face and seeing, just the way the eye is. If you turn it upside down, you start seeing the shapes of the color, and I'm. Forgive me for not being so technical with my terms. I'm not really like that trained artist, but when you do that, you get to see things, like I said, just in shapes and blocks, and it works so better. One of the things that I was taught that really has helped me along the way is, sometimes we know certain things are there, but that doesn't mean that you should put them there. Kind of like if a player's head is turned slightly, that he has two eyes, but you might only be able to see one full. You don't want to, put two eyes side by side. It kind of goes along with that, if that makes sense.
It's a funny thing. So when you're talking about being technical with art, I'm not technical with my art. I just know what I'm doing. I couldn't explain to you what I'm doing. I'm getting there. But my late father had a funny story, and you just reminded me of it. I'll just tell it real quick. He was a math teacher, and he was teaching some students who were former offshore fishermen. Mm-hmm. They would come we lived in Newfoundland with a small, I don't know if you're familiar with Newfoundland, but Newfoundland's like a very small province off of Canada.
I would love to go there. From what I've seen, it's beautiful.
It's awesome. And so he used to teach offshore fishermen math and science and whatnot. And one day he was trying to teach them just to think strategically, right? So he showed a railroad track that was bent, right? It just had a big buckle in it. So he goes, can you explain to me, why this is? And the fisherman's like, it's just buckled. Yes, but can you explain why? Why? What do you mean why? Well, it's buckled. We can't fix it. What's the point of thinking about it? And it's like, okay, and I'm not going to drive it. Okay, that's technical enough. We'll leave it there. So it's just like trying to, he had the science behind it, but the guy was like, I just know what it is. I don't need to know anymore.
All right.
So we have a question from someone named Peeps, and I think you kind of addressed this before, but long story short, we're going to get into more other artwork that you've worked on, but hockey cards, baseball cards, boxes, and if you want to answer what else you've used, perhaps you can go give a little hint of what we're going to talk about later.
Yeah. So you're talking about other mediums? Is that what?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. So I've used everything from shoelaces and cut shoes to create a Jordan piece. I've used toothpicks to do Ted Williams because he was nicknamed Toothpick Ted and the Splendid Splinter. I've used straws for Reggie Jackson, the straw that stirred the drink. The Big Hurt, Frank Thomas out of Band-Aids and Ace bandages. Feathers for Edgar Allan Poe, guitar picks for Jimi Hendrix and Bob Marley, broken records for Elvis Presley, peach pits for Ty Cobb, black socks for shoeless Joe Jackson.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I love. I'm very literal, so I love taking things that really has not only one purpose, but once they're used, they're done. And I try not to use. I wouldn't use used Band-Aids, obviously, but you find but it's something that I can get in bulk pretty cheap if I go to the dollar store and pick them up that way. So that kind of.
I'm glad you validated that. That's just for the record.
Yeah,
I find that they're brand new.
You won't see me going in the ditches and pulling any masks that people have tossed along the way to create Fauci.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
We got a couple of more comments I'll just bring up. So Brian Kingsley, what kind of art am I into? If I could explain it, I would. But all I can tell you is abstract, and I didn't actually bring any out, and I probably should have. But it's very abstract and very different. So I'll save that for another show.
It's vaguely linear.
Yeah, that's my other Instagram name, Vaguely Linear. But that gives you your insight. It's vaguely linear. And then Peeps is giving you some credence for your Jackie and your website. Yes, I'm impartial to the Jackie, and if I win the lottery, I'm gonna have to come after Tim to get that.
Sounds good.
So I'm gonna bring up another thing I've noticed. You've explained your art from start to finish. So here's something I witnessed, and it was very hard on me. Like, I had a tough dealing with this, and a friend of mine was like, I failed at a piece of art, and I hated it, and I ripped it up, and I threw it out, and I'm not doing this again. And my very good friend, he's done with like an art mentor to me in a very odd sense, since he does art and very different art than I do. And he basically said, don't throw anything out. Never throw anything out. Keep it all. Analyze it and make sure you can update that the next time you do it. So I have a pink box under my desk, and I keep tons of scrap paper. And it's funny because I've gone back to things that failed, and I found little pieces of it. I'm like, I'm going to use that little big piece of paper, but I'm going to use this little piece in my next piece. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. So having said that, have you ever felt you failed at a piece, and how do you motivate yourself to keep trying?
Yeah, that's great advice that you were given. I've never received that advice, so I mean, I may start trying to use that a little bit myself. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not perfect on anything, and so in anything that I do, even now I can go back and look at almost every single piece I've done, and I can see where I might have done something different. But I'm glad I don't, because it kind of represents where I am at that moment. And I guess that them being imperfect makes them perfect. It's me, so it represents me. But so I can name you one piece, for instance, the 1993 SP Derek Jeter was an absolute headache. And when I first started it several years ago, I got about halfway through with it and would scrape off and put more and scrape off again, and it just wasn't working right. And of course, I'm trying to get, fake out the foil in the background. There are no real foil cards. You could use chrome, you could use flare metal, you could use all these other different kinds of of cards, but it just didn't come out right. I even went as far as getting a whole bunch of the 1993 SP rookies that were not Jeter or Johnny Damon or Chipper Jones and Manny Ramirez, and I put those to the side and started cutting the other guys. And I started realizing that one, it's going to take a whole lot of Carlos Delgados and other players to get this done because the foil was just so tedious. But also, whenever you laid that foil on top of the other, for some reason, it just didn't look right as an art piece. So I finally went, later on, just trial and error, and I decided to give myself a little bit of grace and see what would happen if I finished out the foil in one specific way with the 91 leaf, and it turned out pretty good. I was really proud of the way it was, especially considering all the grief that it had given me over the years.
Is this the piece here?
That's it. That's the finished piece. So I finished that one up. It hasn't been too long ago, but that's the finished piece. And yeah, like I said, I'm very happy with the way that one turned out, especially knowing what I went through and throwing out a whole nother piece that was halfway completed. I tossed it. There was one piece that I had probably spent 40 hours on already, and I tossed the whole thing just to start over.
Interesting. So did you keep it or did you just throw it out?
No, I tossed it. It. And so, like I said, I've never been given the advice that you were given, but maybe that's, I'm a lifelong learner. So that's something that I can take and try to apply it to myself right there.
For sure. And that turned out really, really sharp. So I appreciate the story behind it. I'm almost tempted to ask you if you put your own little write-ups on the back of them. Do you ever put write-ups on the back of them?
I put a little bit of detail. Whatever the title of the card is, the size of the piece, the date completed, that it is a one-of-one original because I only do each image once. Like I said, I did those first three pieces over because I felt like they needed to be reworked because of the first three being so important pieces to the hobby, with it being the Wagner, the 52 Tops Mantle, and the 89 Upper Deck Griffey. They needed to have the attention with my skill set, many years in, as opposed to just trying to find my way. And for every piece after that, I've done them only once, and that's the way I'll continue working for here on out. So nice. I put that on the back as well.
So we have a question from the crowd from Ashley Smith. So Tim, what is your favorite piece to create?
I think my favorite. What's up, Ashley? By the way, Ashley's my buddy. My favorite piece to create has been definitely the umpire's piece by Rockwell, the game called. I also love the piece that I made of my son. I would love to get back to making the pieces that I made for, and get back to the pieces I've started of my other kids. And I will get to those. I promise you. If my kids are watching, I'm going to get to them. I promise. But yeah, I love that piece, and I love that Rockwell piece. That has been the most time-consuming one. I finished that one up I started it during Hurricane Florence when we're stuck inside, and the family was inland hanging out with the in-laws, and I stayed behind and just, kept watch around here in the neighborhood and in my house and worked that piece and worked the Koufax piece. But there's just something about the image, and all of it, I give credit to Rockwell just for the image itself. But there's so many little things to it. Like if you'll look at the scoreboard section of it, you'll see, 42 playing second base. I didn't add that. Rockwell added that. So it's Jackie Robinson playing second base, on the scoreboard itself. So there's a lot of little details there, and it's I just love that.
Tim, is that like your largest piece to date?
It's the largest baseball card piece. I've created a Tiger Woods piece that's a little bit larger out of golf cards, and it's on my side as well. And then some of the other pieces, like the guitar pick pieces and the broken records pieces, they're a little bit larger than that.
Wow.
So what I find interesting about this one is it says you spent over 300 hours. So if you put it in context, in a 40-hour week, right? So that just gives you And since I might have a very poor math mind when I'm live, I'll just say that's 7.5 weeks worth of effort that went into that piece, just so
Right.
people really
Right.
understand. Like, there's work being done here, and
Right.
that's nice.
Right. Yeah, it was. There's a lot. You pour yourself into something like that. So whenever it was shipped away, it was kind of a sad day, but it's went to a good home. So I was proud for that. But it's always a piece that I think it'll always remain somewhere near the top as one of my favorite pieces that I've worked so far.
Awesome. So there's a couple of comments I'm just going to bring up. Sorry, I went click happy earlier. Let's go. So hockey guy Chris loves your art. How many pairs of scissors have you worn out, would you guess? Interesting question.
Oh, at least 30, 40. That's
Wow.
not a joke. I mean, and they break. They break once they start getting dull. I'm not sure if I even have any around here. So they look like this, and you can see that they'll start wearing down. And if they don't wear there, once they start getting dull, they'll actually, if I start cutting something that's a little bit thicker like Heritage, they'll snap.
No kidding.
Right,
Wow.
the screw in the middle will snap, and it's time to get a new one. Which they're only like probably $8 to $10 a pair. So I get a little bit of life out of them.
So on the weekends I do a lot of cardboard art with the kids, and the reason I do cardboard art is, well, one, it's COVID, and I wasn't going to hardware stores, and there's tons of cardboard from Amazon, right? Like, just loads. And I decided, like, why do I need art supplies? I have cardboard. So we started making models.
Right.
I've broken these scissors. They don't even, you can't even see, but they're not even level. They're like, they have
Right.
cutting the cardboard.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting here going, really? Oh, okay. So I've gone through a few scissors myself cutting corrugated cardboard.
You get it hung up on something just a little bit thicker that doesn't have the air in the center like cardboard. Like if you cut something thicker like Heritage, those things will snap if they're dull.
Oh, interesting. Oh, the other thing I noticed with certain cardboard, if you cut it, instead of cutting, it snaps the cardboard in between the blade,
Right.
and then it's stuck. Oh,
that's why 89 Donruss and 90 Donruss and 91 Donruss are the best cards to cut, because they're so thin. The stock is so thin.
True, sure.
Even more so than anything else. Even more so than Fleer, and more so than Tops, obviously, during that time.
So Chris has another question, if you don't mind, Tim.
Sure.
He says, have you noticed a particular brand or era of cards you like cutting up for projects? I think you were getting into that.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so definitely. I mean, I love the 87 Tops for everything that it gives me. I could cut nothing but 87 Tops for pretty much any project, because I can find exactly what I'm looking for, and there's no shortage of that. And as far as my favorite just to cut in general, it would have to be those Donruss cards from 87 to 91, just because they're so thin and flimsy and easy on the wrist and the hands, and I get a little bit more life out of those scissors.
Now, Tim, is there a particular era or brand that has a multitude of color palettes that you stick to?
I mean, I guess every bit of it is kind of necessary, I guess you could say. I mean,
okay.
So I definitely, the Donruss, if you look at the backs of those from 85, 87, 89, the yellow to orange gradients of those, and even cards within the same set, the ink was so all over the place that you could hold up a stack of 88 Donruss and flip them over and, fan them out, and you're going to get 10 to 12 different, shades of blue in there.
No kidding.
Right. So that's fun. It's always fun to pick through a 5,000 count box and try to find the specific one that you need out of that.
I love the art process, because I've gotten into the art, I appreciate it, because I'm looking at things a bit differently. And even while you were talking, I was actually looking at some of the cards and just noticing, like, there's some of the coloration, like you would use, like there's the yellow, there's some blues, there's a lot of like earthen tones. So that might make it easy, but stuff like this is probably fairly complex, because it's chromey and it's got like
right. Yeah. So, and once you cut that and you overlay it, it gives it kind of an X-Fractor type look, which is not necessarily what I'm looking to get, unless I guess if I was creating an X-Fractor type piece, but
yeah, cool.
Yeah, I definitely like trying to stay away from the shiny as much as possible.
Well, it's hard because chrome is the hottest thing right now. So there's a lot of chrome singles out there.
Right. I might get barked at a little bit if I get caught cutting chrome. There's a lot of fans out there that.
We don't want to be controversial, so we're not being controversial. I think you answered the question about the hardest piece. Was the umpire the hardest piece?
No, Starry Night, Van Gogh. That one was the most difficult. Trying to just get some sort of, and there's no way to replicate the brush strokes that Van Gogh put into that piece, but taking, those old Topps cards and the old Donruss and just trying to mimic those little quick brush jabs, across and getting them in some sort of flow to give some sort of movement within that piece. That was tough. And I spent a lot more hours than I anticipated on that one.
So this is the Starry Night for those of you who are wondering on here.
It's a beautiful piece, Tim. I mean,
thank you.
It's like literally a museum piece, what you've created. Like, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting lost looking at this stuff. I better get back to our live show. Where have I lost track here? So let me just go back to see what I was doing here. You did talk about the hardest piece. Let's answer a couple of questions. I knew this was going to come up. Anyways, I'll stop sharing for a second. So he's going to ask a particular type of glue. So just for artistic integrity, we're not going to get into that type of question today. But he does use glue. He's mentioned that. Next one is, this is in reference probably to the Starry Night to get that painterly look. Is probably what he or she is referring to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it really is. Just to try to mimic, a specific style that an artist has done, especially one that's that well known and people, his style is instantly recognizable. Even on some of his lesser known pieces, you can look at it and say, that's a Van Gogh.
For sure. So
trying to mimic that, it's tough.
For sure. I'll do one more question here, and then we have some more questions to get to you. And Tim, it's a good sign when you're looking at art and you get distracted and you forget. So I'm definitely guilty of that on a live show, but it's okay. I think I'm forgiven. Chris has a question around how thick do your pieces end up being depth-wise? 5 to 10 layers?
Yeah, they're very. If you look at them from the side, there's definitely some depth there. There's definitely a little bit of some overlapping, and I try not to go too deep on the cards, just because I don't want to glue on top of cards on top of cards on top of cards, but whenever you start getting into the minute details of the face, especially whenever you have smaller faces, and I'll go back to either the 86 Fleer Jordan or the 79 O-Pee-Chee Gretzky. The faces on those pieces are so small. Like, they're small. The faces of those pieces are smaller than an actual card themselves, but they're created from nothing but little slivers of card. So I'm having to put the little eyebrows in the exact shape of the eyebrow and as close to the right color as I can. And I'm using an X-Acto knife. So there's a lot of stacking in that regard. So, the faces might be a little bit deeper than some of the other sections, especially something that's where there's a lot more solid color, like the white on the ice or the gray on the wall of that particular piece there.
I noticed you've got the white dot in here. So that's very key. Just so everyone knows, you've got the white dot right on the arm. But you said you never do a piece more than once, right? Once it's done, it's done. Right? You never go back to it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I do that for a couple of reasons. One, it gives the person that's actually, waiting patiently for a piece to get done, it gives them something, and especially with the money that they're spending on it, it gives them something that's theirs that no one else has, that I've done. But it's something that I'm spending 100, 120, 150, 200 hours on.
Sure.
And if I'm going to spend that much time looking at one card, I'm done with it. I don't want to look at it again, especially not for that long. There's so many cards out there that I would love to get to, before I go. So, and I think I could keep working them, and I plan to keep working until I can't go anymore in my life. And there's still going to be cards out there that I want to get to then. So I really don't want to spend any time going back and revisiting the same card again.
So one question Kent, just one quick question when I get in before I forget is
all good, all good.
the commission versus personal ones that you want to do. How do you decide? Sorry, let me ask this a different way. Do you save certain players for your personal work and then you save certain players for commission? Like, how do you decide that?
No, believe it or not, some of my favorite cards that I want to work are it's just an aesthetic reason. It's because I like the image itself. I think it's beautiful. Some of the pieces that I've done that I still own, I love the Jordan of him, with celebrating with the trophy. I love the 33 Sport Kings Jim Thorpe, so I created that one just because. Other pieces like the Rockwell, I did just because. It doesn't mean that I like doing those more than commissions because I do this for a living. So the commission work is not just wanted, but is cherished by me to get that opportunity to do that. But there are just some even commons that I want to get to and do just because the common itself is so pretty. The 1956 top set baseball. There are some football, and forgive me, there are some older Bowman football sets, I believe, from the early 50s that are just beautiful. And one of my favorite cards is from the T206 set. It's Harry, and I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name, Pattee, Pattee, but it's a horizontal card, and the background is so colorful, and I think it's great. Eventually want to get to do something like that, and I eventually will. I plan on it.
Awesome. And an extension of that question. So Al, a very good friend of mine from one of our message boards in the hobby, if someone came to you with a player project that you require them to provide an image, or would you look through the player's cards to find the image that quote unquote speaks to you?
No, I definitely, I love the back and forth with the client. I love the back and forth, and I love, if they have something in mind that they straight up want, that's the image, I'm definitely willing to listen. I'm also, willing to give them my insight on if it's the right image for my type of artwork. If it's a really busy image where there's a lot of fans in the stands, a lot of chain link fence in the background, a lot of different things like that, it can get, if there's a lot of muddying going on, because I'm using cards that have stats printed on them or, little faces, it'll muddy up the image. So I'd rather keep it as clear as possible. Some of those pieces, I use Don Mattingly all the time as an instance. His 84 Donruss card is probably his most popular. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, 84 Tops is obviously, but 84 Donruss is the one that everyone really, really wanted. It's a portrait, and it takes a lot less time to do that portrait than it does his 87 Tops card where he's standing at the plate and there are fans in the background. That 87 Tops card would take me 4 to 5 times the amount of time to do than his 84 Donruss. So it would cost 4 to 5 times as much. And it probably still wouldn't look as good as the 84 Donruss just because it's not a piece that lends itself well for this type of art. So I love the back and forth, with a client, and, either coming to a compromise, or if it's something that they want done that I can do, that I feel like I can make it worth the time and the money that they're spending on it, I will do it. If I think that there might be a chance that I let them down on that, I'll pass on it. And pretty much everyone's okay with that. They'd rather know that up front than me get down to the end and it not turn out the way, I'd envisioned it.
Awesome. So Kent and I, we share the show duties. I've been a bit of a hog right now, so I'm going to step back a bit, let my partner in crime do some talking. But before I do that, want to make sure everyone goes to see Tim Carroll's website. So the URL is at the bottom of the screen. I'm sure Tim would love some inquiries, and I know a lot of you are player collectors. Maybe Chris wants a Marco Sturm piece. That's Hockey Guy 2006. And Al, I'm sure you want some Flames pieces. But you can always reach out to Tim and take it from there. So I want to make sure we really promote Tim's really good work, and I want to be fair to him and make sure he gets a chance to show that off. So
thank you.
Kent, I'm gonna stop talking now, buddy.
It's all good. It's all good. So Tim, you had mentioned earlier that you have used obscure materials, and I'm honored to have a signed print of yours of the Elvis self-portrait that was done with vinyl LPs. For that particular one, what made you decide to go with broken up records?
Well, Elvis was just, I mean, I was born in Tupelo, which is Elvis's hometown. So, that's what our hometown's known for. It's Elvis's place. And, I guess it's just, he was when he burst onto the scene in the mid 50s, he was all about breaking records. And so it's kind of just like I said, a literal term. And, the records were there and they were handy. My dad was a collector of various things and he had a lot of junk, vinyls. So, I just took them and started snapping them and breaking them and seeing what I could do with them and putting the pieces and arranging them. And I come out with an Elvis to hang on the wall.
My friend, that's another beautiful piece, by the way.
Thank you.
It's awesome. So you mentioned earlier that you were formerly a teacher. At what point did you realize that you were going to stop teaching and do your artwork full time?
Well, my wife and I, we talked about it for a while, and at the time we had 3 kids in the house, and my daughter has since, she's moved out on her own and she's finishing nursing school now. But we had 3 kids at home, so leaving a salary was it's scary,
For sure.
it's not easy. But around the summer of 2016, the wait list that I had on the artwork had backed up to over a year. I was working at, my was getting ready to go back into the classroom. I was doing all of the summer different type of professional developments to get prepared. And I was still spending my weekends working on the artwork. So I wasn't spending, any time with the family at the beach. And it was all because I just couldn't. I was trying to get caught up on things. So as July rolled to August to September to October, there were a lot of changes that were going on within my school. And I came back and was talking to my wife that, there was a lot of other things that were being added to me at the school that was being required of my position, which was, totally fine. That's what's required. So you go with it. But what it was going to do was it was going to take even more time away from doing the artwork, which was going to require me to do even more work on the weekends and at nights. So it was going to be even less time with the family. So we talked about it, and it was one of those things. It's like, do we give this a shot now? Is this the right time? This is what we've kind of talked about, and we prayed about it. We thought about it for a little while, and then I went in the next. I said, well, I'm going to go in, and talk to the principal, and I did it, and I walked out and was scared to death, and I was like, what did I just do?
Right.
And I walked around the corner and was standing by the front desk, and was going to let the lady at the front desk know, because we had become friends. I was going to let her know. She was about ready to retire herself, but I was going to let her know that I was going to, I'd done it, and I was going to be leaving in a couple of weeks to do the artwork full time. And I was scared to death, but I was like, did I do the right thing? And a lady come around the corner. She's like, are you Mr. Carroll? I said, I am. She said, I need to talk to you. I see your work online, and I need to hire you to do a piece of work for my husband. And I said, okay. And, I hear that all the time, but so, you just kind of go with it and see where it leads. And whenever she asked me, she wanted to get it done right there in the middle of the school. And when I just gave her a quick quote, she said, do I need to write you a check now, or do I, how does that work? And I'm sort of, you're serious. Yeah. So I was like, I think that was my sign that I've made the right choice. And
For sure.
I thought that the wait list was going to get knocked down pretty fast. I thought that 1 year was going to get knocked down, really quick, because I was used to doing summer, which is just a couple months, and then nights and weekends. And now I was going to be doing it full time during the day and nights if I needed to, and some weekend work if I needed to, which I have. And it's not slowed down. The wait list is quite lengthy. It's about 3 years long right now. So,
Wow.
which is, even working, it's
Sure.
still lengthy, but, so I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate. I don't take it for granted. I thought that once the pandemic hit, that it was going to, slow me down. Everything was going to kind of shut down.
Hmm.
And just like the card market itself, it's not. It's actually taking on an even bigger life of its own.
Right. Oh, Vincent. Okay. Says he got a piece coming. Can't wait.
Yeah, he does. He has a Brady coming. Yeah, it's gonna be
Oh,
fun.
nice. So do you miss teaching at all, and have any of your former students approached you?
Yeah, no, I miss the kids. I miss the relationships, with the other teachers. I miss just walking next door and talking to different,
Yeah.
teachers in the hallway, and that's fun. I'm still friends with those people. I mean, Ashley that you was on here earlier. He's one of my best friends out here, so I get to see him, at the ball field, and we talk a lot. But yeah, I miss the kids. I miss making, having that kind of direct impact in lives.
For sure.
But at the same time, one of the things that we always teach the kids is to, to take chances, to take risk, calculated risk. And, sometimes the right answer is not playing it safe when it comes to picking a career choice, or, so we can't really be hypocritical with it. We have to kind of show them that that's the way it works. You really do have to step out on the ledge and jump sometimes, and as long as you have a lot of things lined up and make it work, and just work hard afterwards. So yeah, I do. I miss them, but at the same time, I know that this is where I'm supposed to be.
I don't think I could have said that any better, Tim. That's a very beautiful way of saying it, or
Thank
putting it. Now, you've mainly stuck to sports icons, which we all know. And however, you've dabbled into, for example, the Van Gogh's Starry Night, which is one of my favorites, as well as the Banksy girl with the balloon, which is another one of my favorites as well. Now, are there any plans to maybe go a little bit outside of that in the future, do more of those type of pieces?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm big on just pop culture in general. That kind of goes back to that Ginner collection that I'm talking about,
Right.
with all the celebrities and the different types of athletes, and with the artwork, the musicians and the historical figures, and the actual what I call masterpieces, whether it's Banksy's Girl with a Balloon, or Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring.
Yeah, right.
Or yeah, so I finished that one up at the end of last year. I have a lot of intentions to do a lot more of those type of pieces. Some of them are popular, some of them are not. Again, it just goes back to whatever it is that I like, or maybe even something that my wife likes, and
Sure.
kind of like that Banksy, something that she wouldn't mind hanging on the wall.
Again, beautiful recreations. It just, whether it be a sports figure or one of these recreations from past masterpieces, beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
So I know you've mentioned that in the past that your Norman Rockwell one was Tough Call was one of your favorites. Is that still today your favorite of all the ones you've done so far?
Yeah, probably so. I think it is. And I've as far as pieces that I've done that don't have any kind of sentimental meaning to me, I love the piece that I did of my son.
Sure.
That's hanging on the wall in his room, and it's a pretty big piece. It's 3 feet by 3 feet. And I also, there was one that I actually did it in Toronto. Corporal Cirillo.
Oh yes, right.
So I did that piece live, at the Upper Deck booth. That one meant a lot, knowing that it actually went to his family afterwards.
Right.
Upper Deck was able to get in touch with someone that was able to put them in contact. And Wayne Gretzky signed the piece at the Hockey Hall of Fame, at an event that we had there on a Saturday night. And he signed the piece, and it went to the family. So that was a pretty important piece. That one's obviously beyond anything that, I don't know, that I guess you do whatever you can with your talent to make an impact or to give back or something. And that was important.
So, out of all the masterful pieces you've created and the sports icons, and who's your favorite sports celebrity to meet in person, and give us a story or some cool story that when they actually got to see your artwork.
Oh, well, so I wasn't with Gretzky when he got to see my art. He signed two of my pieces at the Hall of Fame that night, and I wasn't with him when he signed them, so I don't know what his reaction was to that. That was pretty cool, meeting Wayne Gretzky at the Hockey Hall of Fame and getting a picture made with him, at that Upper Deck event, with the Stanley Cup, at a closed event where you're sitting there having dinner at a table right in front of him, and he's talking, and it was supposed to be kind of a scripted type question and answer, and he kind of shot that down pretty fast and said, hey, let's just they're the ones that are here and they want to know stuff, let's just ask them, let them ask the questions. So everyone in the audience got to ask their questions, and he told his stories. That was fun. Shaquille O'Neal at another Upper Deck event was that was incredible. I'm from Mississippi. Shaq is from I'm not sure exactly where he grew up at, but he played basketball at LSU.
Yeah, Tiger.
So yes, down in Baton Rouge. So when I walked up to shake his hand and take a picture with him, I looked up at him and I said, Shaq, I'm a huge LSU fan. I guess he could tell by the accent that I wasn't like everybody else in the room. He looked down and I had the name Tim on my sticker, and he looked down and he said, Tim, you from Baton Rouge? No, Shaq. You from somewhere else in Louisiana? No, Shaq, I'm from Mississippi. He said, close enough. So the rest of the night, as he walked past, he would call me Mississippi. So, I joke around. Shaq gave me a nickname. That was pretty fun. And he bowled that night with us in Cleveland, and he would throw a gutter ball and scream Kobe, when he'd do it. So he was super fun. He's just like the big kid you see on television. He's that way in person. As far as the artwork goes with a celebrity and them seeing it, it was really nice hearing that Joe Torre loved the piece of artwork that his friends at the office of the commissioner of Major League Baseball, they had hired me to do it. And that was such an honor to be able to do that. It was honoring him for his Hall of Fame induction in 2014. And so they gave it to him the week before. And he sent word back to me that he loved it and that it was not going to be hanging at those offices. He was taking that and he was taking it back to his room at his house, and that's where it was going to hang. I did a piece for the Detroit Tigers Foundation and for the Miguel Cabrera Foundation. Also, they work together to do an event each year, a charity event. And so I did a piece of Miguel Cabrera, and the gentleman that set that up was talking to Miguel about it and asking him would he be willing to sign that piece of artwork if I made it and finished it, and he was showing him my website, and Omar Vizquel walked up and said, what are y'all talking about? And they showed him the site of my stuff, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Omar is like a Renaissance man. He's a guy that does a little bit of everything. He plays music, he paints, he's tremendous at baseball, and he said, hey, I've got to have one of those. So he had it set up to have one of himself made, which was pretty, it's pretty cool to have someone want one of them, and them being a potential Hall of Fame shortstop. So.
Yeah, I'll actually show that one real quick just so everyone sees it. I believe this is the picture you're talking about.
Yeah, that's Miguel signing his piece at the event, and Omar got his a little bit later.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I did have a gentleman that had, Bo Jackson's 86 Topps Traded piece, and he had it signed at an event. And when he stuck it, he said Bo was quickly taking people's items and signing them, and they were just moving along. The line was moving. He really wasn't paying attention to anyone unless they had paid for a photo op or something like that. And he said he put the piece in front of him, and he said Bo kind of slid it back was looking at it from a distance, look at it up close, distance up close, saw Kirby Puckett's face on it, and went into a story, started talking about how Kirby had taken him under his wing when he first got into Major League Baseball, and how he was kind of like a mentor to him. And he said that the gentleman that had it done said that you could tell it kind of struck a nerve when it was like, that's kind of what art is supposed to do. He's supposed to kind of, bring emotion in some kind of way. And for him to take that moment and actually, talk about that, that's pretty cool.
Awesome. Just a quick interlude before we get into the next question. So, Tim, I'm telling you right now, I'm enjoying this conversation a lot because it's just an enjoyable conversation. You're a very good person. You're a very spiritual person. I can tell. You're a genuine person, and that's like the type of people we want on our show. And I'm smiling because I'm glad to have gotten to know you, and I just think you're an awesome person. And good things come to those who I believe are fairly spiritual and also good people. So just want to throw that out there. Here's one. Probably a question you get asked a lot, but I'll ask it anyways. If there's one sports icon who's no longer with us today, and you want to present them with one of your recreations, who would that be and why?
Yeah, so I've had some time to think about that, and the first name that comes to mind is definitely Jackie Robinson, followed very closely by Roberto Clemente. It was kind of hard picking one over the other, So I guess I got a 1A and a 1B there.
Sure.
Those two guys there for what they stood for and what they did. Jackie, just paving the way and just being the right guy, the guy who stepped up during that time and took that unwarranted abuse to just kind of, to lead the way for other people. It's pretty tough, thinking about, and I know you've probably seen the movie 42 like I have, but that's Hollywood's. It has to be so much harder in real life. I can't even imagine. And with Roberto, similar situation. He's not from, wasn't from the United States, and so coming to the United States in a time where there was way more racial tension than there is now. It's he even on his baseball cards, Clemente. Topps changed his name to Bob in around 1957, and they run it that way as Bob Clemente until I think around 68-ish or 69. But to try to Americanize his name, and he didn't care for that. He didn't like that, didn't want that. But of course, he stayed silent, about it, I guess, or. I'm assuming he stayed silent because nothing changed. And if he didn't stay silent, it didn't change anyway. But they finally changed it later on in the last couple of years of his sets. But that's a gentleman that passed away, taking care of other people. So giving either one of those guys, being able to do something for them, if you could somehow, some way, change the way time works and have one of those guys with us, and I was able to do a piece of artwork and give it to any guy, I would have to be one of those two guys.
I agree. Jackie is my hero. So out of all my athletes and everyone I admire, Jackie is my hero. He paid the ultimate sacrifice because he lost his son through his devotion to others. So he was trying so hard. He lost a relationship with his own son, and his son's no longer with him. Well, was no longer with him at the time. Mm-hmm. He's someone I want to would have always loved to meet. Same with Roberto Clemente, also an equally hard life. So those guys, they paved the way, and the way is still being paved today. And
absolutely,
we just got past Black History Month, so it's important me bring that up as well.
For sure.
And I really admire your answer to that one. So
thank you.
Before you ask the last question, can I just ask one question of Tim?
You can ask as many questions as you want. I've been talking all day.
Tim, I know you shared in the past stuff that didn't work out. Can you share the story about the pine tar one?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the George Brett made out of pine tar, and forgot to mention that one earlier when I was talking about other materials that I use. So, George Brett with the pine tar incident in '83, I think the date's around July the 21st or 23rd or something like that of '83. Brett goes out and he steps to the plate and he hits a home run off of Goose Gossage, and it's a home run that's gonna essentially win the game. And he rounds the bases, and Billy Martin of the Yankees comes out and he has a look at the bat and points out that the pine tar is too high up on the bat, and that because of the rules, blah blah, illegal substance above a certain level, whatever. They called Brett out, and Brett lost his mind coming out of the dugout. So that moment in baseball history is just too fun. So I wanted to make a picture of George Brett out of pine tar. And so for years I spent trying to figure out how am I going to make this work. Pine tar is not going to stay on something that's going to hang on a wall. I looked into, do you freeze it? Do you heat it? Do you put something over it? Do you spray it down? Is there some way to keep this together to where it stays like it's supposed to stay? And I never could with the what I had in mind. I'm sure there's ways I could have sectioned it off and turned it into more of a cubist style of artwork with dividers. I probably could have done that, but that's not what I was wanting to do. The piece itself was probably one of the quickest pieces I ever made. It was around 4 to 6 hours, and I just took pine tar and put it on a canvas and started using my palette knife to move it around. And thicker sections were darker. It looked great. It looked like George Brett. And I actually spent though times talking to what I assumed are scientists online, people that work with different kinds of viscosities.
Sure.
And they weren't able to give me, if they responded to me at all, weren't able to give me a direct answer. Or at least nothing I could understand. I mean, some of the emails I got were over my head, and whatever, and I didn't have the courage to go back and send them a message back like, can you break that down for Mississippi boy, So I went ahead and I created the piece of artwork, and slowly but surely that pine tar just kind of run together, and within a couple of weeks it was just a big blob of pine tar, and had to toss it. So it's the one piece that I've made that truly no longer exists in any form other than the picture I took and probably floating around somewhere online.
Thanks for sharing that story, Tim. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
That's an awesome story, and I just had a thought which I thought was kind of funny. So if you ever do a card of an art card of someone who did something illegal, like using nail filing material to saw down the ball, you could do something like that. So
yeah, now you're thinking like me.
There you go. And then I'll give you more as I think about it. We're coming up on just over the hour mark. So I want to be respectful of your time and everyone else's time. I want to ask you the last question. It was my favorite question of the show, and really what the show is all about. And just before I close, for those of you still watching, please feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to us. We're going to be bringing great content in the next little while, and Tim's a great example of the type of people we're going to be bringing on. What inspires you, in Tim? What inspires you to do what you do and be a good person that you are on a daily basis?
Oh my goodness! I thank you so much for the compliments about me as a person. That's way more important than anything with the artwork. I've said it before. Someone asked me, at the end of one conversation, how I wanted to be remembered, and my answer had absolutely nothing to do with artwork. That really is not. That doesn't. I mean, it's kind of what I'm known for, but it's people that know me. That's not really all I am. That's not just who I am. So. That's awesome that you guys, thank you for saying all that. But what inspires me? Everything in life really, it's just everything leads you to the next thing. I started out, like I've told you, back in college, going to college for that junior college art classes, and I left after one semester and joined the workforce, and I ended up cutting leather for a decade. in a furniture manufacturing plant. So cutting leather and seeing how those leather pieces kind of form together, it kind of shaped my mind that way, and it led me to the next thing, which was, and I see how everything just kind of snowballed, and I kind of took the time to basically allow myself to pay attention to what I had done in the past, and not just section that off, but allow it to kind of flow into where I am along the way and mold me. So as far as inspiration, it's really everything. Everything. You allow family to come into it, and you just kind of go with the flow. You don't try to push anything. You just kind of take it as it comes. So I don't really know that there's any one thing that inspires me. It's just you kind of put your next foot forward. You work. You do it. I absolutely love getting up in the morning and doing what I do. I'm extremely fortunate for that too, because I know that there's so many people out there that are stuck in jobs that they don't like, or even worse, they're having trouble finding work right now, and that's awful. And I hate that for them, for
Sure.
all of them, the people that are not only looking for work, but I hate it for the people that are stuck in something or feel like they're stuck in something that they don't like. And I hope that everyone one day finds something that they love and are able, with this blessing we have as the internet, all it takes is just putting something out there that's yours, that you own something. And when I say you own it, I'm talking about like it is you, it's not who you are, but it's something that is something that you've kind of made your own, I guess you could say. And something that's unique. And if you put that out there, there's other people out there that's bound to like it in a way that you can make a living off of it. So I hope everyone takes that opportunity to try to find what it is that makes them happy and go with it.
Awesome. That's a great answer. I'm just gonna, and it means a lot that you came on the show, and I'm glad that great minds think alike. So I'm glad to hear how you, and I have a feeling that's the Mississippi way. There's some Mississippi way in the way you explain, I'm sure. So
absolutely, my home there, Mississippi is always going to be my home. I live just outside of Myrtle Beach in a town called Conway, which is very, very similar to home. It's just a little bit closer to the touristy area, but home is home, and I grew up in the fine people I grew up around, and there's I love my Mississippi home. I love my roots there. They've definitely played a part in making me who I am.
One day when COVID is over and the borders are somewhat normal, I'm going to definitely come visit my family down there, and we should grab a pint and shoot the iron.
Absolutely.
So we're coming up on the end of the show. I want to thank again Tim so much for coming.
Thank you, Meat. Thank
for
you,
all
Tim.
for all of you. Sorry, Brad. For all of you that are watching, please hit the link to look at Tim's website. It's www.timcarrollart.com. Please drop him some more business. He's a good guy, and he can make us some awesome stuff. So Tim, why don't you hang out in the background, and we'll just end the show. And Kent, do you want to just introduce our guest next week?
So we're going to have next week Susan, who's also known as Suze Yanks Chick. Yes, she'll be on next week. So look forward to that show.
Cheers. So I'm going to end it up. Thank you very much. And then hit the end broadcast button now. Thank you all.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, everybody.